A very good afternoon to you. What do you make of the latest developments on the Zexit talks?
Well, I do think that it is confirming that indeed the talks are taking place and that you are likely to have an announcement within the next few days, which may signal the beginning of the end of Jacob Zuma's era as the president of the country.
Prof, why do you think it seems like it's difficult for President Jacob Zuma to acknowledge that his time might be up as, of course, the leader of the nation?
There is so much at stake here, including the legal challenges that he's facing. And he does have an extensive network of patronage, of friends, of family members who may also be affected by his decision. And lastly, because of the legal challenges he may face, he may try to bargain in order to make sure that the funding of the legal protection or defense, as well as possibly the influence of the appointment of a director of the National Prosecuting Authority and the retention of some of the ministers, so that there is not a total wipeout of his support base.
Prof, I mean, I'm just going to tag on to that word that you just used now, bargaining. I mean, a lot of people are looking at the postponement of SON and, of course, the ANC special NEC meeting as more of a barter deal. What is your take on this? What do you think could be the actual reasons for these politically or otherwise that they were postponed?
Well, I think it was a political reality that the opposition was going to disrupt, and this was going to be a theatrical drama, which is reflective of the political tragic comedy that we've become in the last few years. And because of that and many other things, such as the vote of no confidence lined up down the road, as well as impeachment lined up down the year, all those things might have been the reason to say, let us pause. This year is no longer like the previous years, and the president may face a humiliation of his party voting with the opposition to oust him.
And Prof, then how do you see this? How do you think it should have been handled with the motion, looking at the motion and when it was, of course, brought to the Speaker for consideration? Do you think it should have been debated before or after the SONA?
I don't even think it was a question of debating before or after the SONA, but the question of ANC persuading its deployee to say, this is about time that you step aside because the political cost of carrying you and the reputational damage has become too much for a party which is beginning to refurbish itself, trying to return back to the highway from the detour it has taken.
All right. And Prof, before I let you go, do you see this as a very direct or indicative manner of the ANC being held hostage by its very own policies that they are now finding very hard to implement when it comes to ousting their president?
Certainly, the first one is a structural one. For now, ANC ought to rethink the notion of having its own election of leadership being separated by almost a year and a half from the national elections, because you would have a seamless transition if ANC election was to take place at least a few months before the actual election of the country. That's the first thing. The second one is the political culture that has occurred. What has happened within the ANC, personality cults have grown, factionalism has grown, and that has allowed for personalization of power and weakening of institutions, which has allowed President Zuma to become larger than the ANC and to do things as if there was no collective, there was no ANC. And the ANC was left with one thing as its key performance area, to defend him each time he made mistakes.
And Prof, what does this whole debacle then do to the state of the state?
The state of the state is deeply entwined to the state of ANC politics, because the ANC has been a dominant player since 1980s, and it has been the majority party since 1994. So if ANC is sick for a moment, then that sickness spills over to the country, it becomes affected. And until such time that ANC sort itself out, and also our general body politics, because its main opposition, DA, is not too far from self-mutilation given the mistakes and the challenges it is facing itself. So it is a worrying feature to say our body politic, our party system might have some serious rethink, as well as our electoral system, if we are to consolidate the democratic system we have.
But then, Prof, I mean, with all of that, how does the party then even begin to self-correct when we see the top party structures and officials at loggerheads about what should be the way forward?
It may take time, but right now they do have the tailwinds of the justice system, which may begin to pick up some of the corrupt individuals and may therefore humble them and neutralize them. That will give ANC a chance to remake itself, to reflect on some of its weaknesses, and also to regroup and bring in its veterans, bring in all those who have been alienated, including those who, for all practical reasons, left the ANC to join other parties or to form other parties.
Mm-hmm. Prof, thank you so much for that sound analysis. Professor Somado Fikeni joining us on the line with his viewpoint on the current developments within the ruling party.